I'm a notorious protector in the capital. Whoever bullies my son in the morning, their ancestral grave will be dug up by the afternoon. At the spring banquet, a little boy cornered my son. His big eyes were full of jealousy. You only know how to rely on your mother, a giant baby for life. I rushed over and punched Bang Bang twice, making him clutch his head and admit his mistake. My son cautiously asked me, "Is it only because you don't rely on your mother that you grow up?" I smiled gently, "It's useless for mother." At night, the little boy stopped me at the back door. He stammered, Can you be my mother too?" Just as I was about to refuse, a barrage of comments popped up above my head. The villain bullies people on the surface, but secretly envies them and secretly comes to claim his mother. Who would have thought that the future powerful minister who dominated the court would also long for a mother's love as a child? The words of refusal were swallowed back. Do you wield power over the court? Son, you have a powerful backer in the future. 01. I carefully sized up the boy in front of me. If he remembered correctly, he was Qin Yan, the illegitimate son of the Shangshu family. But it was a miserable mess. Generally, a son of a concubine has at least a mother who becomes a concubine. As for him, it seems he was the seed left behind by the minister of the secretariat during his pursuit of pleasure in the brothel. When I saw the comments, I already had a plan. But he didn't rush to agree, instead asking, "I have Yunner, why do I have to acknowledge you? Yi Xiyun was protected by you until he ended up with a useless." A sharp glare instantly flew out coldly. He swallowed the words he wanted to say and hesitated, like a glutinous rice ball. Ha ha ha, the villain's will to survive is really strong. Don't you want her to protect you too? Big brother, don't laugh at second brother. I glanced discreetly at the heir but said nothing, waiting for him to continue. If you become my mother, I'll take care of him when you're not around. Good boy, no wonder he's the future traitor. At such a young age, he could clearly see the stakes at stake. All right. I'm betting on this one. I said nothing and turned to walk into the courtyard. The little figure behind her still hadn't made a move. What are you standing there for? I waved at him. Keep up. Qin Yan was momentarily confused, as if he couldn't believe it. When he finally reacted, he nodded vigorously and jogged in 3 quick steps. Afraid I'd break my word. Yunner was currently playing with kites in the courtyard, while the old maid watched nearby, yawning out of boredom. When he heard I was back, he staggered over, holding a kite as high as half a person, reluctant to let it go. Mother. Not even close. Smack, fell flat on the horse. Qin Yan's low laughter came from behind. I coughed hard, and he immediately straightened up, his expression serious. Yunner got up from the ground, feeling very disappointed. Am I too stupid? No way. I squatted down and brushed the dirt off his hem. Yunner is good, kite is broken. It's all because this dead kite tripped you. Qin Yan behind her instantly widened her eyes. It's hard to believe people can be so sophistry. Kite? I didn't offend anyone. The villain was stunned. How can you really shift blame like this? What should I do? Suddenly I feel a bit sorry for the villain. He pursues a lifetime of spoiling, and Yi Xiyun easily has it. Yunner saw him too, and a little scared, he hid behind me. Mother, why is brother Qin Yan here? Seeing how obedient and polite he was, my heart melted completely. Look how wonderful our Yunner is. Just this afternoon, Qin Yan had bullied him, and he still called him brother. I thought for a moment, but instead of acknowledging Qin Yan directly, I smiled and said, Brother Qin Yan wants to be friends with you, so mother invited him over to our house to play. Yunner happily nodded and handed the kite to him. Brother, then let's play together. At this moment, Qin Yan's expression spun around brilliantly, looking especially remarkable. There is loss, there is hesitation. Let's not play for now. I pressed Yunner's hand down. I still have something to discuss with brother Qin Yan. After speaking, she glanced at him. Let's go to the study. 02. After the door closed, I pulled out a chair and let Qin Yan sit. If you want to follow me, I don't mind. But the minister's residence suddenly lost a child. Is the minister okay? Qin Yan hung his head, seemingly undecided about this issue. The atmosphere in the study was so cold it felt like it was freezing. I sighed so barely noticeably. In that case, you may head back first. He suddenly looked up. You're lying to me. Faced with his grievances, I remained calm and unhurried. I am the Marquis's wife, not a kidnapper. I will naturally fulfill what I promised you, but you must give me time. I met Qin Yan's narrow, slightly upturned eyes straight ahead. Open and open, without regret. All right, I'll wait for you. After a few breaths, he turned and left. No hesitation or hesitation. Though only 2 years older than Yunner, his temperament was mature like that of an adult. I stared at the empty gap in the door, lost in thought. The Yi family ancestors followed Taizu in conquering the realm and were granted marquisates, but unfortunately, their descendants were unworthy and each generation was worse than the last. Now, apart from entering the palace to kowtow during festivals, he couldn't even speak a word in the court. If the future powerful minister comes to me willingly, of course I'm happy to do so. But what worries me is, don't waste time making wedding clothes for others. Oh wow, the villain got sent home again. The minister's wife has come up with a new plan to trick him again, so she's waiting at home. Last time, I slandered him for stealing jewelry, which made him get 20 lashes. He had a fever for 3 days and nights and managed to get through it. This time, it seems they bought a Taoist priest to say he's a lone star of calamity, saying it will bring death to the minister. I was originally planning how to visit and speak to the minister in person. Unexpectedly, she was just dozing off and was already delivering a pillow. If you don't want it yourselves, don't blame me for taking advantage of it. I was calculating in my mind, waiting for Qin Yan to be kicked out of the house so I could naturally go pick him up. Unexpectedly, another comment drifted across the chat. The villain is too clever, he exposed the Taoist priest on the spot, almost making the minister's wife nervous. I suddenly found myself restless. Or maybe he's too young to hide his talents. No wonder the minister's wife was so scheming to get him killed. After much thought, I called for the maids and old women. Prepare a sedan chair for me and head to the minister's residence. 03. I was invited to wait in the front hall, but the minister's wife was slow to come. And in his heart he knew the vegetables were spoiled. The servant smiled broadly and apologized. Madam, there is an important matter at the residence today. How about, my matter is important too? With that, he stood up and rushed inside. Anyway, I'm used to being domineering in the capital, so I don't need this one. He quickly walked toward the inner courtyard, and from a distance, he could hear Qin Yan's voice. Cold as ice, he questioned the minister in disappointment. Father, think carefully. Since I arrived, the household has been peaceful. Last month, you even received the emperor's commendation for doing a good job on your mission. Now, a wandering Taoist claims I can defeat you without any evidence, and yet you believe me and want to drive me away. Isn't that a bit too childlike? The minister wore a stern face, showing no sign of joy or anger. Qin Yan knelt on the ground, his forehead red from kowtowing. He showed no sympathy, only weighing the pros and cons. I can tell that Minister Qin actually wants to drive Qin Yan away, just using the Taoist's words as an excuse to go with the flow. Oh, looks like I came at the wrong time. I covered my face with a fan, my eyes wide in shock. Minister Qin and his wife immediately put on smiles. I didn't know you had come here or showed any neglect. Someone, please take the seat. Although the Marquis's residence lacked real power, the title was there, and others had to show some respect. I didn't refuse and sat down confidently, stealthily glancing at Qin Yan, who was kneeling upright. What did the child do wrong, making such a big fuss? The lady of the secretariat let out a long sigh. A Taoist priest happened to pass by, originally doing a ritual to pray for the master. But when he saw Yenner's face, he frowned deeply. He also asked for his birth date and time, which turned out to be a fate of a lone star of heavenly calamity. If he stayed in the mansion for a long time, it might bring ruin upon his parents and bring ruin to the family. I blinked curiously. What ba zi? My father is the chief supervisor of the Imperial Astronomical Bureau. Although he specializes in astronomy, he also knows a bit about folk fortune-telling. I've been influenced by this and know a little about it. Why not tell me about it? At these words, the minister's wife was momentarily stunned. I clearly saw her and the Taoist secretly exchange glances, a moment of panic. It's just a family matter. She laughed it off, changing the subject. May I ask what brings the Marquis's wife to visit? Oh, in the afternoon, Qin Yan had a minor friction while playing with my Yunner. I got anxious and hit Qin Yan a few times. I came here specifically to apologize. The minister and his wife looked at each other. After all, I was very famous in the capital for protecting my own family. For the sake of his son Yi Siyun, he argued almost every noble lady with her, and even if she wasn't right, she would take a third. This is the first time I've seen him apologize. It's fine. The Marquis's wife loves her son so much, so it's understandable. How about this? I stared at Qin Yan, an idea coming to mind. Since the Taoist says he torments his parents, why not give him to me? Yunner happens to need a brother. This, the minister was instantly stunned. Not wanting it is one thing, but giving it away is another. A look of doubt appeared in the minister's eyes as she refused. You're joking. After all, Qin Yan is the master's own flesh and blood. A hot spring estate on the outskirts of the city. I directly set the terms. I heard that the minister is in poor health and needs to soak in hot springs to recuperate in winter. Give this child to me, and the estate will be yours. The hall instantly fell silent, even Qin Yan stared at me with his mouth slightly open, incredulous. A quarter of an hour later, I signed the handwritten transaction document by the Minister of Personnel. He cupped his hands in greeting. Then I'll take Qin Yan away. The manor's contract will be delivered later. The minister nodded, puzzled. What's so good about this child? I gave a mysterious smile. It's all for Yunner. He stood there in confusion. Although the minister's wife deliberately lowered her voice, it still reached my ears. The Marquis's residence has money. Buying Qin Yan to be Yi Xian's tutor is a win-win. So, by that logic, Qin Yan is actually getting a good deal. I freed my hand to cover Qin Yan's ear and smiled gently. Don't listen. From now on, none of this will concern you. 04. God knows that the moment I signed the estate, my heart was bleeding. The comments above my head are even more heartbreaking. Could it be that the Marchioness really knows how to read faces, saw that Qin Yan had the grace of a dragon and phoenix, and that he had the fate of a top scholar, so she went to great lengths to bring him home? The villain has also improved. Some people are willing to spend money to spoil him. Lady Ho, be careful. Villains are no good people. In the original story, the first thing he did after becoming successful was to personally wipe out the entire Shangshu family. I appeared expressionless, but inside I was in turmoil. Unexpectedly, Qin Yan was someone who would take revenge for every grudge. You really have to treat him well from now on. Qin Yan remained silent all the way, only speaking softly as he neared the gate of the Marquis's residence. Is it worth spending so much silver? Instead, I knocked him on the head. If they want you to leave, can't you come to me directly? Why argue with them? What's the point of winning the fight? I can even save on the manor. Qin Yan sniffled. What if you don't want me? I would be homeless. My heart trembled. What exactly has this child been through? He doesn't even dare to trust him so much. Unable to resist, she knocked him on the head again. Shen Wantong, keep my word. From now on, don't say such insulting words. He had 2 large red marks on his forehead, but his eyes shone brightly. She rubbed the spot where she had been tapped with her small hand. He muttered quietly. Got it. 05. When Yun'er learned that Qin Yan wanted to live with us, she lowered her head and said nothing. I crouched down to straighten his collar and asked quietly. Is Yun'er unhappy? He glanced at Qin Yan not far away, but seeing me present, he still mustered his courage and said. He bullied me last time, and I don't like him. Qin Yan's eyes dimmed instantly, even a little nervous. I knew he was afraid I wouldn't want him. From the time he used Yun'er as a condition to negotiate with me. He knew perfectly well that his fate was already tightly bound to Yun'er's. I've already taught Brother Qin Yan a lesson. He knows he was wrong. Yun'er, please don't hold grudges, okay? His eyes flickered, but he still nodded with a little mouth. Alright, go have fun. Seeing this, Qin Yan took the initiative to invite Yun'er. Let's go fly kites, I flew them really high. Yun'er loved flying kites the most. Hearing this, his eyes widened instantly, eager to give it a try. Watching the 2 children stand shoulder to shoulder, their backs gradually shrinking, I feel a bit at ease. Qin Yan was observant and thoughtful. This is actually a relief. But just as he had caught his breath, a servant came to report. Madam, the Marquis requests your presence. My heart skipped a beat. Oh no, I haven't even discussed the matter of sending the house and taking in the child with my husband. 06. My husband Shen Huai was painting in his study, and as soon as he saw me, he stopped brushing. A half-smile curled at the corner of his mouth. There was a strong intention to mobilize troops to demand justice. I quickly explained, Husband, I have my reasons. He raised an eyebrow. Oh, then I have to listen carefully to Madam. The lady of the minister's supernatural and mysterious techniques have given me endless inspiration. I blurted out, I can read faces. Qin Yan's forehead is full, his nose like a hanging gallbladder, and he looks like a powerful minister or high official. But I heard that kid clearly has the fate of a lone star of calamity, almost being kicked out by the Minister of State. What do they know? Gold ingots are like worthless sandals. Just wait. When Qin Yan succeeds, his family won't have time to curry favor. Shen Huai had no way to deal with me and could only shake his head helplessly. Madam, you're being too willful. I really like that hot spring manner too. He grumbled on and on. Just as I was about to calm him down, the barrage of comments above my head startled me and made me stand up immediately. He pushed open the door and rushed out. "Where are you going?" "Madam. I have no interest in dealing with him." His mind was filled with those few comments from the live chat. The villain's expression is so strange. He's been staring at Yi Siyun the whole time. Is he up to something sneaky? It's possible. Otherwise, why would he volunteer to fly kites by the lake? Right now, Yi Siyun is standing by the lake. If he pushes Yi Siyun down and then rescues him, the Marquis will definitely treat him like her own son. Compared to his methods of harming people in officialdom, this is already child's play. I jogged all the way to the lakeside, feeling numb in my hands and feet and trembling uncontrollably. If that were true, when I arrived panting, this was the scene before my eyes. Yun'er stood under the tree, looking up with longing and longing. Qin Yan was standing on the tree branch, reaching for the kite on the branch. He stood tall, had a good view, and had already seen me. He smiled and waved at me. From my angle, I happened to notice the branch at his feet snapping open. "Watch out!" I cried out anxiously. But it was already too late. Qin Yan landed firmly on the muddy ground beneath the tree. Yun'er was stunned. He hurried over to check the injuries. Her eyes were filled with fear and guilt. "Brother Qin Yan, are you all right?" "It's all my fault. I shouldn't have asked you to help me pick up the kite." Qin Yan slowly raised the kite and smiled at Yun'er. "I'm fine, Noah. Here's a kite for you. If I promise you, I will definitely keep it." Hearing this, I found it strangely familiar. Yun'er's eyes were slightly red, with little pearls swirling inside. "The kite is dead, my brother is alive. Your safety is what matters most." He squatted beside Qin Yan, clumsily brushing the mud off his clothes with his small hands, tears streaming down his face. Qin Yan grimaced in pain, but instead of dodging, he quietly said, "It's really nothing." I turned to stare at the maid beside me. "What are you standing there for? Hurry and get a doctor for the young master." 07. Qin Yan had fallen low and was on soft muddy ground. So there were only minor wounds and skin breaks. When I went to see him, he had already sat up in bed, reading by the lamp. I glanced discreetly at the cover. Ziji Tongjian. Sure enough, history book lovers are no ordinary person. He put down the book, opened his mouth, and stiffened for a few more breaths. He called out, "Madam. Does it still hurt?" I reached out and gently touched the scar on his face. Qin Yan trembled and instinctively shrank back. He seemed uncomfortable with being cared for. I smiled, pulled my hand back, and began to question the authenticity of the comments. Qin Yan was suffering too much. I don't want to think of him so badly. But the next second, Qin Yan's words pulled me back to reality. He said, "Madam, you were running in a hurry this afternoon. Is there something urgent you need to see me?" My eyes were barely noticeable, but I quickly concealed it. "I heard from the nanny that you went to play by the lake. It just rained at noon, the moss is slippery, and I'm worried you might be in danger." I clearly saw the panic in Qin Yan's eyes. Even if it was just a fleeting moment. "Don't worry, madam." He looked at me solemnly. Beneath a child's skin seems to hide a mature soul. "I promised you, I won't let you get hurt." On the way back to my room, I kept recalling what happened during the day. Actually, I arrived earlier than Qin Yan had imagined. At that moment, the branches beneath his feet showed signs of breaking, and he noticed them too. But after seeing me, he didn't choose to step on another branch, instead staying where he was. At the moment Qin Yan fell, he used all his strength to grab the kite stuck between the branches. Land with it. Perhaps Qin Yan really had a moment when he wanted to push Yun'er into the water. But in the end, he didn't do that. Still a bitter scheme. But this time, he chose to hurt himself. I rubbed my brow irritably. Qin Yan is too thoughtful. Can I really handle him? 08. Since the kite incident, the relationship between Qin Yan and Yun'er has started to improve. Although Qin Yan doesn't show it on the surface, I often sneak around to observe their interactions. I'm always worried that Qin Yan might cause some trouble. On the day of the Guanyin festival, I took them both to Shuiyun Temple to offer incense. Coincidentally, while they were resting and drinking tea at the halfway up the mountain, they encountered the sedan procession of the Shangshu family. Lord Shangshu is a well-known man who is deeply devoted to his wife. He has been married to her for many years and never has any concubines. In the backyard, there's only his wife and their legitimate son. Therefore, they really hate Qin Yan. His existence seems to prove that Lord Shangshu's devotion is nothing but a joke. Moreover, the special favor that Lady Shangshu enjoys isn't pure either. After hearing this gossip, I found it completely absurd. If the bridge isn't built properly, then it just collapses. What did Qin Yan do to deserve this? With Lady Shangshu's favor, how could a weak woman like Qin Yan possibly force her to do anything? The wind in the mountains carried the scent of sandalwood, and visitors kept coming one after another. Coincidentally, the wife of the governor was also there, resting and drinking tea. Beside her sat a young boy, presumably the legitimate son of the governor. When she saw me, she greeted me warmly and invited me to sit with her. But when she saw Qin Yan at the end of the line, her expression suddenly changed. Her son, Qin Feng, even dropped his teacup heavily, his tone being very displeased. Qin Yan, you little scoundrel. How dare you come here and worship Guanyin? Don't you care about ruining this peaceful place? Yun'er said angrily. Who are you, and why do you have to scold Qin Yan? The governor's wife didn't stop Qin Feng, instead, she looked at Yun'er with a smile, kind and benevolent. Young prince, your brother Qin Feng is actually helping you. Qin Yan was born in a brothel. He has a dirty bloodline. Our governor's family doesn't accept such children. Don't be deceived by him. I was so angry that my fists tightened up. Shut up. I suddenly stood up, pointed at the two of them, and scolded them harshly. Qin Yan is my adopted son. Why do you call him a worthless, dirty person? Who do you think you're insulting by doing that? After all, they are members of the official family. Spouting such vulgar words, showing such lack of decency, and still having the face to mention the sacred place of Buddhism. You two are the worst. I'll make sure you both get kicked out right now. The wife of the governor looked embarrassed, but she tried to suppress her anger and explained. We didn't mean to imply anything against the Ho family. It's just that Qin Yan. How dare you curse? I was even more angry, almost ready to throw those insults right at her face. Who sold our son to us through a simple contract? How dare you speak like that, wife? Do you really think it's something glorious? My words instantly strangled the wife of the governor, who looked like a goose with her neck tied. She couldn't say a single word. A set of hot springs as a substitute for a son from the Shangshu family. It's really beneath contempt. Seeing his mother fail in this way, Qin Feng was filled with anger and stood up to protect her. He's just a curse-causing villain. If Lady Shangshu wants him, she can keep him. No one will compete with her. The Taoist said that he's a villainous star who will destroy all his relatives. May the Shangshu family have good luck. Ha ha ha. I couldn't help but laugh. Then, may the blessings of our Shangshu family continue forever. It's not like some families where everything is blamed on fate, not on their own bad luck. Lady Shangshu collapses in despair. Why did you even provoke her? Lady Shangshu, she's the most powerful person in the capital, with a record of defeating 2 opponents at once. Only I noticed that the villain's eyes were filled with anger. He recognized Lady Shangshu as his mother, right? I looked towards Qin Yan. He was staring at me with a look of admiration. Let's not drink this tea anymore. I took one hand and the other person, and walked towards the carriage. Later, we should burn more incense in the temple to dispel the bad luck from our bodies. 09. The news of me arguing with the Shuksang family spread throughout the capital that same day. My husband looked pained, resting his hand on his forehead. Lady, what exactly did the Shuksang family do to provoke you? I recounted everything that had happened at the tea house. My husband's expression turned serious. Lady, do you know what rumors are circulating outside about the Ho family? Rumors about them using their power to force people into servitude. That's ridiculous. I slapped the table. If it weren't for my kind-hearted act of taking in Qin Yan, he would still be begging on the streets today. It's true, but public opinion is something to be feared. What's there to fear? I waved my hand dismissively. Time will prove everything. On that day when the children went to school, I personally accompanied them there. The other mothers who also sent their children to school saw me carrying Qin Yan with me. They covered their faces with handkerchiefs and whispered to each other, obviously discussing something. Their eyes kept glancing in my direction. Yunner felt uncomfortable being stared at, so he hid behind me. I patted his head gently and then walked towards those women. What are you all talking about? Why don't you tell me as well? One of the mothers smiled awkwardly. Nothing much. Then keep your eyes focused. I said coldly. Did your mother not teach you that staring at people is considered impolite? I don't care what you discuss privately, but if you dare to interfere with my 2 children, I will definitely come to demand an explanation. Another mother tried to ease the situation. Mrs. Oh, you're joking. I turned around and Qin Yan carefully pulled on my sleeve. Madam, you might offend people by doing this. It's better to keep a safe distance. I seemed indifferent. What's there to be afraid of? It's just like how people interact with each other. You're stronger, so he's weaker. You're weaker, so he's stronger. Some people just like to act in a way that makes you feel uncomfortable. They know you'll try to maintain your dignity, so they don't dare to cause a fight. They deliberately let you suffer in silence. If you feel uncomfortable, just say it. Who cares about appearances? The one who feels unhappy loses. Qin Yan nodded thoughtfully. 10. By evening, the 2 children came back excited, their eyes full of excitement and thrill. Slow down. I caught Yunner, who was rushing into my arms like a cannonball. What are you doing? Why are you so happy? It's brother Qin Yan. Yi Xiyun lifted his little head to look at me, waving his arms and legs. He taught Qin Feng a lesson this afternoon, and I helped a lot too. Oh? I raised an eyebrow and looked at Qin Yan. He lowered his head in embarrassment, while Yunner in his arms told me what had happened that afternoon. During Qin art class, a Guqin was missing. Yunner and Qin Yan happened to be ranked last, so the debate over who played the Qin became a matter of debate. Yun'er generously gave the zither to Qin Yan. Brother, use it. You learn first, and teach me when you get home tonight. Qin Yan immediately shook his head. Yundi should use it. I can remember what you said, but whether you have a zither or not doesn't matter. Seeing the two courteously yielding to each other, Qin Feng, sitting in the front row, turned around to mock him. Yi Siyun, you use it yourself. Qin Yan has other instruments he's good at. Yun'er knew he definitely hadn't held back his fart, so she turned her head and ignored him. Another student chimed in, then tell me, what is Qin Yan good at? Qin Feng gave a mischievous smile. Of course, playing the flute. Do you know why he's called Qin Yan? It was because his courtesan was especially skilled at playing the flute. Back then, she tricked my father with a dit song, thinking his mother would gain status through her son. Even Qin Yan's name was chosen by his mother out of love and emotion. Isn't that funny? The others immediately started whispering among themselves, whispering to Qin Yan. Yun'er's cheeks flushed with anger. Are you ashamed? Your father was the one who started the chaos and then abandoned him, yet he still has the nerve to spread it around. Clearly, the Qin family's morals are not upright. After speaking, he looked at Qin Yan. Luckily you came to my house. The Qin family isn't good enough for you. Hearing this, I gave Yun'er a thumbs up. After following me for so many years, he's only learned the basics. And then I pressed further. He blinked. Brother Qin Yan didn't say anything, just pulled me to sit down. Yun'er thought the matter would just be over. He was still a bit angry inside. I had just told them this morning, if you don't like me, just talk back. Why didn't Qin Yan do as told? But after class, Qin Yan secretly called Yun'er aside and leaned in close to him. Yun'er's eyes widened after hearing this. The two brothers exchanged glances, understanding each other perfectly. 11. Qin Feng was currently chatting with his classmates. He enrolled early and was more familiar with others. Forming cliques would seem like isolating Yun'er and Qin Yan. Qin Feng, how come I never heard you had a younger brother before, nor did I see him come to the clan school? Qin Feng snorted disdainfully, him. Think you deserve it? If he hadn't been a servant for the Yi family, he wouldn't have been able to learn from him. Everyone burst into laughter. Qin Feng. Yun'er suddenly spoke from behind. Qin Feng frowned deeply. Yi Siyun. What are you doing here? I heard you cursing Qin Yan again. I have to tell my mother. When Yun'er brought me up, everyone shuddered. Qin Feng recalled the day of Guanin's birthday, shivered, and grabbed Yun'er. No, let's talk this out. Yun'er brushed his hand away with disdain and said seriously. So, do you dare to make a bet with me? Bet on what? If I win, from now on you must treat Qin Yan with utmost respect. What if you lose? Qin Yan pulled out a heavy bag of gold from his pocket. This is the New Year's money I've saved for 8 years. If I lose, I'll give it all to you. The moment Qin Feng saw the gold, his eyes almost reached out with his hand. All right. He agreed immediately. Yun'er straightened her chest and said righteously, you decide what you play. Don't say I'm bullying you. A faint, inexplicable smile appeared at the corner of Qin Feng's mouth. You said it yourself. At that moment, a determined aura surged from him. Qin Feng didn't bring anyone else and let Yun'er go alone with him to the pavilion on the back mountain. After sitting down, he actually pulled out 6 dice from his waist. Comparing sizes. Can you do that? Yun'er forced herself to nod and sat down in a gesture of invitation. You go first. Qin Feng's posture was very practiced, his hands rising and falling as he lifted the dice cup. It was a total of 6 sixes. Yun'er felt a chill in her heart. What kind of fun was there to play with? He swallowed hard, his gaze involuntarily glancing outside. Qin Feng said proudly, "Hurry up, it's your turn." "You can't handle the game, do you?" Yun'er gripped the dice cup tightly with her small hand, sweat trickling down her forehead. Just as he was about to open the cup under pressure, Qin Yan's voice came from the air like celestial music. "Teacher, it's Qin Feng who led my younger brother astray. Look, caught red-handed." Qin Feng's face changed drastically at the sight, and he wanted to pack up and run. But the dice and dice cup were both pressed under Yun'er's hands, making it impossible to take them away. "Let go!" he shouted angrily, fierce. Yun'er's mouth pouted, and she instantly burst into loud sobs. He turned around and started complaining. "Teacher, Qin Feng cheated me out of money." 12. Qin Feng was stunned, and tried to defend himself, saying, "I didn't do it. It was him who wanted to gamble. But I didn't want to play dice with you at all. The family's rules are strict about using gambling tools. Did you not know that?" Yun'er rubbed her eyes, feeling very upset. Qin Yan stepped forward and grabbed one of Qin Feng's hands. His expression was even more panicked than when the teacher arrived. He struggled desperately and cursed, "Qin Yan, you little fool. Do you really think that just leaving the Qin residence will change anything? Let go of me now." Qin Yan used more force, knocking several dice out of Qin Feng's sleeve. He weighed the dice in his hands for a while, then looked at the teacher. "The dice aren't evenly weighted. Something must have been done to them." The teacher looked at everyone present with a stern gaze and asked Yun'er, "Which numbers did he roll just now?" 6 sixes. "Did you roll those on the table?" Yun'er nodded, biting her lip. The teacher opened the dice bowl, and inside were 4 threes and 2 twos. He touched the dice on the table again, pondering over them. "These dice are normal. I'm wrong." "Teacher." Qin Feng was so frightened that he almost knelt down. Deceiving his classmates with tricks like this could lead to his expulsion from the clan's academy. His future and reputation would be ruined if this matter were to be exposed. It's necessary to investigate this matter carefully. But carrying gambling tools and corrupting the atmosphere of the academy is indeed wrong. "Please, Lord Shang, come here." Qin Yan then bowed deeply to his teacher, his words sincere and earnest. "Teacher, although this gambling arrangement was initiated by Yi Siyun, he did it to protect me. He didn't intend to use dice tossing or other methods to determine who wins." Qin Feng coveted Yi Siyun's gold, trying to bet 1,000 pieces and win. He even encouraged Yi Siyun to gamble. His actions are deserving of punishment. With that, he looked at Qin Feng, his tone full of threat. "If we don't punish Qin Feng severely, I will definitely inform the lady, and let everyone in the entire city discuss this matter." Qin Feng's face turned pale. He immediately sent a servant to invite someone to his residence. It was the wife of the minister who arrived. She spent an entire hour with the head of the educational institution in the study. When she left, she silently took Qin Feng along to pack up their things. His classmates discussed among themselves, "I heard that Qin Feng wants to drop out of school. Do you know the reason?" "I only know that he went to the back mountain with Yi Siyun this afternoon, and that's all." Yi Siyun and Qin Feng both kept their heads down, not saying a word. Before leaving, the wife of the minister privately called out Qin Yan. "Qin Feng has already dropped out of school. You need to keep a close watch on the Yi family. If I hear any rumors, I will deal with you head-on. Qin Yan replied calmly, okay. The wife of the minister was furious, trembling with anger. I underestimated you, little brat. Let's see what happens. Qin Yan ignored her and turned back to his classes. 13. After Yuaner finished speaking, I remained silent for a long time. The comments above me were filled with joy. Uncle Qin Yan was kind this time. In the original story, he used Qin Feng's habit of gambling to completely disable one of his hands. The minister had no choice but to train Qin Yan, but in the end, he turned him into a vicious wolf who killed his entire family. Deserved. Although Qin Yan was known for taking revenge, he also knew how to repay kindness. Look at how good he treats Yi Xiyun. The whole family really has found a treasure this time. I hope to see the minister's regret when Qin Yan becomes successful. I looked back at Qin Yan. Did you know that Qin Feng had gambling equipment? He lowered his eyes and said slowly, Qin Feng was addicted to gambling. This wasn't a secret in the Qin family. He often went to gambling houses on his own, and the minister had to cover several of his losses for him. I sat up straight. So you asked Yuaner to use gold as a lure, confident that he would definitely fall into the trap, right? Qin Yan seemed to freeze for a moment. He spoke with difficulty, Madam, I didn't mean to exploit Yuaner. Qin Feng may be stupid, but he isn't a fool. If I go, he won't fall for the trap. Yuaner also rushed to explain, Madam, I volunteered to go. And that bag of gold is fake, it's just stones, with only the top layer being real. I shook my head helplessly. I don't blame Qin Yan. On the contrary, you all did great today. I'm happy for you. Qin Yan and Yuaner exchanged a glance, and then a big smile appeared on their faces. I remember the first time I met Qin Yan. He pushed Yuaner into a corner and said that she was a useless person who could only rely on her mother. In fact, I often thought that while I can protect Yuaner for a while, I can't protect her for a lifetime. When I grow old and die, she will still be a child who never grows up. What should I do then? But since Qin Yan came along, he grew up very quickly. From a little boy who always hid behind me, he became a little fox who could act in plays and stand up for others. All of this is thanks to another even more cunning little fox. Thank you. I placed my hand gently on Qin Yan's shoulder. He trembled slightly. Madam. You call me Madam. I gave him a reproachful look. At first, no one knew who insisted on calling me a mother. Now, I'm actually following them, and they keep calling me Madam. Yuaner also seemed to be enjoying the whole situation. After a long time, Qin Yan's face turned red, almost dying of embarrassment. Finally, he managed to say a word through his teeth. Mother. I responded with a long sigh, then patted his head. From now on, always call me that. No changing it. 14. The wife of the minister once said that Qin Yan would have to wait and see. But she didn't get that chance. The head of the clan school told me that Qin Yan had extraordinary talents. His ability to learn and understand was far beyond his peers. I wrote him a recommendation letter to go to the White Deer Academy. The White Deer Academy is a sacred place that every scholar dreams of reaching. If your son goes there to study, he will surely become a successful candidate within 5 years. I took the letter and thanked him repeatedly. I thought to myself that Qin Yan would definitely become a prime minister in the future. On the day Qin Yan left home, Yuaner hid in the bed and cried all night. I pulled him out of bed. His hair was messy, his face covered in tears, and he looked completely disheveled, like a little stray cat. I wiped the tears from his eyes. How can you stop crying? Mother, I don't want Brother Qin Yan to leave. I sighed. Is his future more important, or is it more important for me to be with you? Do you really want Qin Yan to stay with you? Not at all. He immediately stood up. When Qin Yan first came to the Ho family's residence, there were always rumors in the city. Not only did Qin Yan feel uncomfortable, but Yun'er also suffered from them. Now that I brought up this topic again, he became anxious and said, of course, his future is more important. After saying that, he started scratching his hands again. How can I see him again? I had an idea and encouraged Yun'er, if you work hard in your studies and become the top student in the private school, then you will be able to get a recommendation to go to Bayer Deer Academy. Yun'er stopped crying, as if she had opened the door to a new world. Yes, I didn't think of that at all. Since then, he became much more diligent, working from dawn to dusk, immersing himself in books every day, trying to keep up with Qin Yan's pace. Seeing Yun'er's hard work, her husband was extremely pleased. Lady, that mansion is really worth it. Ha ha ha, the Lord really made me laugh. In the future, you will realize how valuable it really is. Lady Ho is simply a genius in investing. Although I don't want to discourage Yi Siyun, I must say that Qin Yan will become the top scholar this year. Yi Siyun. I just got admitted to the academy, and you say my brother has already become an official. Looking at the words in the air, my heart stirred slightly. Does that mean that Qin Yan is coming back soon? 15. On the day of his appointment, Qin Yan finally returned to the Marquis's residence. His husband, Shen Huan, had specially prepared food and drinks for him. Recently, both houses have been experiencing great happiness. Yun'er just left for the White Deer Academy, and Qin Yan was soon appointed to a high position. It had been a long time since Qin Yan had been seen. He seemed somewhat unfamiliar. He stood tall and imposing, looking like a true adult. It's been 8 years. I sighed. I'm finally ready to return. I sent him letters every time, urging him to come back and visit. Yi Siyun also missed him very much. But Qin Yan always said that he would definitely return, yet he never did. He bowed and said, I haven't achieved any fame yet. I dare not meet with you. My nose tightened with emotion. I didn't say anything, just led him to sit down. Qin Yan was still the same person he always was, sensitive and proud, always holding back his anger inside. He didn't know Shen Huan well, but since Qin Yan had become an official in the court, they would inevitably meet. So we exchanged a few words over a drink. My husband was very happy. It's all thanks to you that Yun'er can attend the White Deer Academy. Qin Yan pointed at his own nose and said nothing. Me? I laughed and explained, after you left, he spent days and nights thinking about it, and finally decided to get into the academy and become your classmate. But you moved too quickly, and he still couldn't catch up. We'll have to wait until he passes the exams, then you two can be colleagues. There was a warm expression in Qin Yan's eyes. Okay, I'll wait. He originally thought about moving into a small house, since he had established himself as a successful person and it wasn't right to stay in the imperial mansion anymore. I said with a stern expression, your monthly salary is so little, you still live in the imperial mansion. I'll take care of your food and lodging. You should save your own money. About moving out, we'll talk about it when you get married. I was firm in my attitude, and Qin Yan had to agree. What he didn't expect was that Qin Shangshu, with his shamelessness, actually dared to come to his house. When the gatekeeper introduced him, I simply waved my hand and said, let him go. I don't want to see him. Shen Huai advised. He's in a situation where he can't see anyone above or below him. The lady should show some respect. After much thought, I nodded reluctantly. Mom, please take me with you. Qin Yan's voice echoed at the door. After a moment of hesitation, I gently nodded. Perhaps he also needed to say goodbye to those who have been important to him in the past. 16. The minister's hair had turned white by half, and he looked much more haggard. Recently, he became the subject of ridicule after meals. The son who was once treated like trash by him now became a successful official, holding a high position at the 6th rank. Meanwhile, his legitimate son, Qin Feng, was completely ruined after being expelled from the family's educational institution. He became obsessed with gambling. It is said that the dowry given to the minister's wife was completely wasted. I ordered my servant to prepare tea. I asked indifferently, "What is the minister doing?" He handed me a document, smiling awkwardly. Things should be returned to their rightful owners. Damn it, he thinks he can still get something out of it after Qin Yan's success. Be content, old man. Thanks to Qin Yan not being abused they let you off easily. If it were according to the original story, your grave would be covered with 2 meters of grass by now. I wish I could live without any shame, just like him. I couldn't help but laugh at these comments. I forced myself to remain silent, pretending to be confused. What does Lord Shengguan mean by this? I was foolish at the time. Please understand and accept it. I will take back the contract for Jezwan, so that I can bring Yenner back with me, and he can finally recognize his ancestors. I'm sorry. I pushed the contract back. I can't give you Yenner. His expression became stern, as if he was ready to grab it. When I adopted Yenner, we didn't sign any contract of servitude. Now that he is free, whether he wants to recognize his ancestors depends entirely on him. I don't want to. Shengguan hadn't even started to speak yet, but Qin Yan had already stepped out from behind the screen. Shengguan's face turned pale, and his lips trembled slightly. Yenner, your father was also deceived by that Taoist. Deceived? Qin Yan's lips curled into a slight smile, but his laughter was as cold as the wind in December. That Taoist was actually brought in by your wife from outside the city. Do you really not know that? Shengguan was so shocked that he couldn't speak. Qin Yan stood before him, looking down on him. You really wanted me to leave back then, and now that there's a chance for profit, do you suddenly want to reconnect with my family? Lord Shang, your audacity is even thicker than a city wall. How can you be so rude to my biological father? Lord Shang's face turned red. Your biological father? Qin Yan sneered. When I was 6 years old, my wife beat me until I was suffering from a high fever. What were you doing? You were spending time with Qin Feng at the Lantern Festival. When I was 8, I was accused of stealing jewelry and received 20 lashes. What were you doing? You were hosting a birthday party for Qin Feng. When I was 10, I almost was kicked out of the house and forced to become a beggar. What were you doing? You were scheming to exchange me for the value of the Hot Springs estate. His words pierced through Lord Shang's heart like knives. You gave birth to me, but you never cared for me or protected me. I have only one mother. He turned to me, his eyes burning with anger. It's Shen Wantang. Ah, finally I get to hear that sentence. Lord Shang's face is completely pale. I'm really relieved now. Lady Ho, this is a great opportunity for profit. I stood up and walked over to Qin Yan, patted his shoulder, then looked at Lord Shang coldly. Please take this contract back. Since Shuangzi has been given to you, it's yours. It's like Qin Yan has bought off your little family connection. That's all I have to say. Lord Shang, please leave. Someone, send the guests out. Lord Shang opened his mouth, wanting to say something more, but was finally pushed out by the doorkeeper. I heard his staggering footsteps and a barely audible sigh behind me. I turned to look at Qin Yan. His eyes were slightly red, but he stood straight. From now on, there will be no more matters related to the Shang family, he said softly. I patted his head. From now on, it's only the Ho family. Let's go back inside. Yun has sent a message. Let's look together. He paused for a moment, then smiled slightly. Okay, mother. 17. Days passed like a river, and Qin Yan's position within the government continued to grow. At social gatherings with wealthy spouses, they would constantly fan themselves and remark, "Lady Tang, you are so fortunate to have such a successful son." Even Mr. Shenhua's status rose significantly. Previously, the Yi family possessed titles but lacked real power, essentially being idle wealthy individuals. Now, Qin Yan was a key advisor to the emperor, and the Yi family was no longer dismissed. However, Qin Yan seemed different from what the rumors suggested. He did not become a cruel and ruthless advisor, but instead, he remained virtuous and dedicated. It was said that the elder statesman greatly admired him and even intended to arrange a marriage for his daughter. This is a story for another time. As for Yi Siyun, he really isn't as smart as Qin Yan. The first time he failed the exam, he came back and cried with me for a long time. I used a handkerchief to wipe his tears while laughing. He's already such a big kid, yet he still cries. Qin Yan will laugh at him later. Qin Yan just walked in at that moment. He was too busy with his official duties to spend much time at home. I guess he came back specifically to comfort Siyun after hearing about his failure. It's okay, he said, patting Siyun's shoulder. Come back in 3 years. Brother, please help me. If I can get promoted further, and once I enter the official world, I'll have you to protect me. Siyun's eyes lit up, and he wasn't sad anymore. He started to imagine a wonderful life as a favored person. I laughed and shook my head. You should take care of your reputation. Siyun has his own path to follow. You shouldn't try to help him too much. It's more important to keep yourself safe. Siyun quickly agreed. Yes, I was just joking. Don't cause trouble for me, brother. Qin Yan smiled faintly. I understand, mother, Siyun. Yunar didn't stay long after she returned, and immediately packed her things to go back to the academy. 3 years later, the imperial examinations arrived as scheduled. By this time, Qin Yan had already taken the position of Taifu. On the day of the results announcement, he specially waited with me and Yunar at our residence. Then, a messenger rushed in, his face filled with joy. Madam, you passed the exam. Ranked 13th in the second category, a Jinsher. Qin Yan's serious face suddenly broke into a huge smile. Yunar was still immersed in joy over her success, completely overwhelmed with happiness. Qin Yan stepped forward and gently supported her shoulder, patting her reassuringly. Don't worry, younger brother. I will definitely protect you. Congratulations. The wishes of the lady have been fulfilled, and the Yi family is now truly prosperous. Yi Siyun is lucky, with a father who is and a brother who is a Taifu. He will surely have a great future ahead. I turned my head away, trying to wipe away the tears from my eyes while Qin Yan wasn't looking. Suddenly, I remembered the night after the spring banquet years ago. The little boy stammered and asked me, "Can you be like my mother?" At that time, all I wanted was to find someone who could support me. But later, he became a member of my family. A part of my life that can no longer be separated from me. Now, Yun also finally came back to reality, and she hugged Qin Yen tightly. "Brother, I don't need you to protect me. I only want you to be safe every year." End of text.